great. Now we can put the screw on the other side there, yeah. Okay, that's good, nice and tight now, yeah. Great.
Need to tighten it.
So we undo that.
We might have to get the right size. Does that turn as well?
To get our spring located. Okay.
Now what? Take it off.
Pull that out. And position it. Tight fit. Oh yeah. That's got it. Good. And the screw goes back in again. Okay, so we'll undo the top and get the bearings off here so we can slide it onto the bike. We've got the frame upside down and raised on a cardboard box. Okay, so we have to be careful that we get everything in the right order. Just really be aware of the order of all these different things here. You could take a photo of it on your own bike. Okay, now we'll slide the ones off that have to come off, which I think is all of them from there up. This bearing will stay there, but everything else comes off. Great. Okay, so we slide all the bits off again. That's good. Good. So now we've got to make sure this is well seated. You've got to have that black cap over the little black area on the frame here, and that will be well seated and give us plenty of length here to start putting on the handlebar. Put the tie rod on the top with the bolt going downwards. Yeah, so we've got the little spacer in here as well between the ball and the whatever that's called. the tie rod arm.
Yeah.
Okay, so once we've screwed the screw down into the black part, and that's tight, so the ball is held tightly, then we've got to screw the lock nut up onto the black part to double lock it up. And remembering that the little bit of nylon is at the bottom of the nut here. We've got to have the nut here oriented the right way, so the nylon is at the bottom. Okay. So on the other side we're screwing down the nut, the bolt again, the screw, into the black part, and tightening it up so it's holding the ball nice and tightly. And then we're going to tighten up the lock nut underneath again. That's it. Okay, so we've got the tie rod on, and now we've got to adjust the tie rod so that the wheels are pointing more or less straight ahead. So we've got the two lock nuts on each end of the tie rod. So we're taking the lock nut, loosening the lock nut off on that end and this end. There we go. And now we can actually turn this tie rod, rotate the whole tie rod, and the rod will actually lengthen with one way of turning and shorten with the other way of turning, so it'll make the wheels either toe in or toe out. Okay, so you just have to experiment with that, and we'll find out what the optimum position is by riding it.
And then tighten it.
And then you tighten, once you've got the tie rod the length that you think is about right, then you tighten up the lock nuts at each end again. And remembering that you turn it the opposite way to what you would expect at this side of the.
This one's bigger.
Yeah. So the left-hand side is a left-hand thread, and that nut is bigger, and that's the left-hand thread nut. Okay, now we're screwing our little head cap down here, and that'll squeeze the whole bearing system up a bit and push the little rubbers into their slots. And it still leaves a little bit of the gap, which is good because we don't want that sitting on the actual tube. We want it sitting on the black part so that the steering is held firmly in place. That'll look pretty good, and then we just have to tighten up these.
It's still moving.
Yeah, because we have to tighten these.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so you can see that when we put these on, the handle ends up being vertical, whereas if you put it on the wrong side, the handle would end up being at quite an angle. So that's how you can decide which side to put each of the handlebars on. Okay, so now we need to tighten this one up. In goes the cap, and screw it down again. Now we'll get the pedals in. Right, and screw it up about there for starters. 2 Allen key screws, or Allen screws screwed with the Allen key. Great. Okay, now make sure you put the right hand pedal into the right hand side. You can see an R on the end of the pedal's threaded end there, and the left hand pedal's got a L on there, and so you have to screw the left hand pedal has got a left hand thread, so you screw it to the opposite way to what you would expect, and make sure these are tightened up, and the one on this side. Okay, now you also need to pull out this little white plastic protector from the gear shifter, and now the gear shifter works fine. Okay. Okay, so we've loosened off the lock nuts on this link here, and now we can turn the link to line up the front wheels, make them parallel. We're using these lines in the tiles and a piece of wood there to line up the wheel with the line. So it looks like we've got that one lined up on that side. So now we have to line this one up. So try turning that now, Jason. Yeah, it's gradually moving around to the right direction. And you could take that lump of wood now and bring it over here.
Just want to be confident this one's...
Oh yeah, get that one lined up, yeah. And so there we can see it's still out of alignment a little bit. Does that look good? So
that looks pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, go. Okay, back to the other side now. How does it look?
Oh, this side obviously needs
slightly out, is it?
Which one will go? It's doing both sides though.
Yeah, but I'm trying to hold this one stationary. I think I'm doing a reasonable job.
That looks good.
That looks good. And yeah, do you want to check it over this side again?
I want to tighten it before I do
Yeah,
anything.
good idea.
A bit concerned, screw.
Tighten the lock nuts.
That's good because there's a little bit of room left.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's looking good to me.
I'm happy with this side.
Yeah, do you want to bring that over? Pretty good. Okay, so now we're putting the bolt through, the large bolt on the top, and the two smaller screws on the bottom, and each of them has a washer on each side, on one washer on the head side of the bolt and one washer on the nut side.
Oh, just meant. Oh, sorry. Just meant.
Okay, so there's the two screws, they just need to be tightened, and that's that. Might have to bend these brackets a little bit to line everything up properly. Okay. Okay, now we've got the mudguard pretty well lined up by a little bit of twisting and prodding. Now we're tightening up the actual steering column there so that it's all firmly in place now. Now we're looking at the brakes, and you'll see that there's one of the Bowden cables is longer and one is shorter, and you'll see that one of the brakes, the brake on the left hand side, has its lever on the upper side, and the brake on the right hand side is the lever on the lower side. So we'll assume that the longer cable goes on this one and the shorter cable goes on this one. We pulled the brake handle down and pulled out the little swivel thing there, and then put the round end of the cable with the little round knob on it into that slot, and then slotted the cable all the way down the back of the brake here. Just turned the little nuts here so that the slot was lined up with the slot over here, and slotted the cable all the way through and pushed the cable sheath up into the hole there. Then we took the cable down around the outside of the handlebar lever and down threaded it through this hole here, loosened off this screw here so we could thread the cable through this hole here and underneath the little flange under the screw. Then we push the lever forward so that you can feel the brake is just holding onto the disc a bit, and then tighten up that with the Allen key, tighten up that screw. Then you have the cable in the right position basically, and you make sure that the cable sheath ends are in their little holes up both in here and down here, so the whole thing's neatly done. And then you get the little end cap to stop the cable fraying, and push that there and pinch it with a pair of pliers, and that's the job done. You can check the brakes see the brake lever goes down to that extent. That's nice. Otherwise you could loosen off the screw here and readjust it if it's not quite right, and then eventually as time goes on you'll be able to do adjustment of the brake using the screws here and the screw and the lock nut here. Okay, so we had a bit of trouble on this side with tightening up the cable because the actual cable sheath wasn't embedded properly in its holes at each end, so it didn't allow us to tighten the cable as tightly as it should be. So we're loosening the cable off again now so that we can bed the sheaths down in their holes and then retighten the cable. Now with the brake cable too, the loose end here should be taken away from the disc, because it is possible for it to get stuck in one of those holes in the disc and then you could be in trouble braking. So if we push it away and actually bend it away, I think it's a good idea, like so. Bend it away like that. Yeah, so it's well away from the disc there. The rear brake, the handbrake is already nicely adjusted on this, so nothing needs to be done there. And we screw the mirrors in and tighten up the lock nut on top. So with the front gear changer, we take it through this right angle bend here, and this bender enables it to do that. Then it wraps all the way around the back in a kind of a pulley arrangement here, and then straight down to where it's screwed up. And so when the cable pulls, it twists the whole thing this way. Okay, so now we just put the derailleur, bolted it onto the frame here. So you can see it's where it's bolted on, and that can swing down like so. So now we need to thread the cable in, the gear cable in, which comes from the right hand side here, and we'll work out what path it needs to go down the frame. Okay, now we've got the long and the short Bowden cables for the gears. Short one obviously goes on the front, the long one goes on the back. So I'll thread them through onto the cables now. So now for the rear cable, you obviously put it over the top of the bottom chain, and then just here behind the wheel there's a ring that it has to be threaded to, and then another ring under the suspension spring, another ring on the side arm of the rear wheel, and another one here. And so then we're ready to put it into the rear derailleur. And we thread the cable through the screw there. It's got a long channel there that the cable actually goes through. Now this is the longer of the two shorter tubes. It's the tube with the plastic end on it like that. Okay, so it just goes through that one spring holder there. Now notice that we've got the shorter tube on the bottom, and it's being held by this helical wire, and then there's a silicon joiner tube here, and then the longest tube goes right back to the back wheel. The medium-sized tube is on the top, and that's held by this helical wire here, and it's going to go, and it goes through under the little wheel here, but above this bolt. This bolt is here to stop the chain from coming off the wheel. Notice that the chain goes above the bolt through the wheel at the bottom. Now it's probably a good idea to thread the chain through this top tube before you even put the top tube on. Then it's a bit easier to get it through if you can dangle the chain down through it vertically. So thread the chain through the derailleur, through the gap there. So next I've threaded the chain through the little spring thing here. And then got plenty of chain out, so I can start dropping it down the tube with the silicon connector. So the chain is now threaded through the bottom end here, and I can pull it through and put the tube back into the little spring up there. Okay, so now we've got the chain threaded all the way through the bottom tube and coming out there. So now we can thread the chain through the rear derailleur and connect the chain. And now the chain is threaded through the derailleur. Of course, you need to do your best to make sure that the chain isn't twisted. By looking in the clear part here, you can see if the chain is aligned how it should be. If it's on its side or something, then you've got to try twisting it one way or the other to find which way it's twisted. Now it's possible to spread the chain link a bit with a screwdriver like so, and twisting the screwdriver to spread the link apart so you can join them together, and then finally the little shaft will pop into the hole and it'll be ready for it to be pushed through. A pair of multi-grips is the ideal tool to push the shaft through the chain. Whacking the axle with a little hammer like this to finally get it all the way through the chain does work. Now with the adjustment of the derailleurs, look, I suggest you go on YouTube and follow the how-to videos on YouTube to do that, because it's a bit too complex for me to explain in this, but I've just adjusted the derailleurs and they work wonderfully. The brass flagpole support is screwed in on here. I've put a washer on each side of the brass there, and that's the nylon flagpole. I used the 50-50 putty needed to fill in the space around the flagpole. So now before you put the seat on, I suggest that you tie the electrical cables, and so I start here with the cable tie on the handlebar here, then coming to this point here and this point here, and then coming down the frame towards the controller at this point, and then coming back to where the controller will be around this area here. And similarly the motor cables coming back to this point here as well. I've also got a cable tie here which is holding both the Bowden cable for the front gear changer and also for the pedal sensing system here, and so they come back and down, and so all the cables coming from that side and the front come down and join at that point, go back towards the controller. So here we've got the seat arrangement. You can see these black rod tubes slide through these clamps, and the long bolt goes through here, and by tightening up the nut you can tighten both clamps at the same time. This enables the seat to swivel up and down, so it's layback or upright seat position controlled by this nut here. By unscrewing this nut, loosen it off, slide it to the right position, tighten it up, and you can see that there's two small screws that thread into these black lugs here, and so the round tubular ends of these adjustment tubes can be held by these screws into the back of the seat. Okay, and just down this end we've got just one bolt that goes through, and it's got a threaded end on this side, so on the left hand side, so it can be threaded in and tightened up. So your backside is in one position here, controlled by this particular pivot point here, and your back can swivel up and down according to the adjustment of this. And then depending on how long your legs are, you can adjust the length of the pedals out there. So this is how you put the headrest on. You just have to undo these screws here and here and put it on. And you see it's got a slight tilt forward with this post here, and yeah, it works very well. This Velcro wrap goes around here to presumably protect the frame from the chain, but give a bit of advertising. I had to fold over the end because it was too long to fit in the space that's available. Okay, we're assembling the dual battery frame, and you can see we slide the aluminium strip into the slots at the bottom of the battery frame, this base plate, and then we have to put the first we put the battery connector into the hole. Of course, we have to get the orientation right. So once we've got the orientation right, I'm not sure what it is at the moment, then we can put the plate on top of that, and so the plate in effect locks the connector into place between the base plate and the controller cabinet. And then finally we'll have to put a hole through here to screw the aluminium strip onto the frame, and then it's ready to accept a battery. So here's the correct orientation of the positive and negative. This would be the right side of the bike here, and the positive terminal is on the right side, negative terminal on the left side. This is towards the front end of the bike, and this is towards the rear end of the bike. Okay, I removed the screw coming in from the other side in this joint here, and then I hammered from the other side on a screwdriver to push this, which is really the big nut, out, and in order to put in the battery support bolt. So here's the nut that I've removed, and you can see there's a thread in there. This is the nut with the thread removed, so that the bolt can slide all the way through, and through the bottoms of the battery frame, through the tubes on the bottom here. Now when you're installing the battery frames, put this bottom bolt through first, and then it'll be a lot easier to bring it up and install the top clamps. So these tubes should slide into the hole in this joint here, and if it doesn't, you might have to grind it down a bit and grind the paint off. And same on the other side. Okay, so I've clamped these downward hanging tubes onto the top seat frame. Now when you're installing this, it's best to get these lined up first in symmetrical positions across the rear tube of the chair, top tube of the chair. And I've put these clamps on this cross member, and I did have to lever open these clamps a bit to make it easy to slide them onto the tube. And then note that I put the bolts in on this side and the nut on this side, and the same here, so that you can get access to the hex head. You can't get access to it very well if it's on this side. And screwed the ends of the cross member in to the battery frames. So that's the setup of the battery frame, and now we're going to look down on the left hand side, and we can see the toggle switch. So this means that you can switch to the left hand battery with this down, to no battery with it in the center, and to the right hand battery with it up. Now this length of cable here has got the wiring for switching between the batteries. So what we have is the left hand battery is connected through here, through the red and black, to the wiring here. You can secure the lid with a cable tie. So over here on the right hand side we have the red cable with 3 wires coming out of it. The green one here is the one that goes to the controller, feeds the battery positive voltage to the controller. This red one here connects to the battery on the right hand side, positive, and this one connects to the negative on the right hand side, and this end here goes to the negative battery supply to the controller. So here's how you connect the controller. These are for the motor, that's for the Hall effect sensors in the motor, and these 3 are the power wires for the motor. And then you've got the battery connectors, which are these, the green one and the black one, and this one's for the throttle, and you'll see that it's got a blue wire. It's actually a green wire, sorry, it's not showing the colour well here. It's a green wire that comes in and joins into the throttle input to the controller. That's because that is actually the pedal assist controlling the throttle. And so that green wire comes from the pedal assist display on the handlebars. And then you've got the brakes. They're connected in series here like that, the red and blue, and okay, now then this plug here with the red and black coming from the controller actually provides power to the display, so it plugs into the 2-wire plug here that goes to the display. And then finally we've got these blue and yellow wire. Now the yellow is lights, and lights aren't attached here at the moment, so we ignore that. The blue wire is receiving the pass signal and from the pedal assist sensor on the disc, the magnetic disc sensor on the front pedals, and that blue wire plugs into this cable here. This plug here, you see this is a 3-way socket, this one that I'm holding in the background there, and it plugs into this one going into the controller, but the blue wire plugs into the missing spot in this 3-way plug here. So these two plug together, and then this sends a pass signal into this plug and into the towards the controller, but it's diverted via this blue wire back into the pedal assist display, so that it can be controlled with the 3-level pedal assist. And that's the basic layout. So now you can see I've plugged the pedal assist display power supply in, and the one I'm holding, I plugged the blue wire into the back of the 3-way plug, and now it's just a matter of plugging the pedal assist into that 3-way plug. So there's the pedal assist plugged into the 3-way plug, pedal assist sensor plugged into the 3-way plug, feeding the sensor signal back to the pedal assist display. Now, since the light power wire could have power on it if somebody turns on the light switch on the pedal assist display, we wouldn't want that short-circuiting on anything, so it'd be wise to cover that with a bit of plastic or shrink wrap. So because the wiring exits are close to the front doorway here, around the side, it's probably best to slide the controller in first and then push all the wiring in after that. So now finally you raise the back wheel on something and clear the chain ideally, and then you can do a throttle test. Make sure you've got your toggle switch switched onto the right battery, so it's up in my case for connecting to the right hand battery. Okay. First of all, when you turn the ignition on, you'll see this goes through a bit of a setup procedure, and you'll see it's on, it's got a full tank and it's on low pedal assist to go plus, middle, plus high pedal assist, and then minus, middle, minus low pedal assist. I'll leave that on middle, and then you can test the throttle, make sure the throttle button is pushed in, and then twist the throttle. Away the wheel goes. Okay, and pull on the handbrake to stop the rear wheel. Okay, now before it falls off my little temporary stand, I'll try the pedal assist. So turn the pedals. Rewind back a bit. Pedal assist. Oh, there it goes. It's rubbing on something. Oh, this toolbox underneath. Okay. Anyway, that's it. So congratulations, it's all working. And so there's the completed electric trike, the SolEV. Ready to go.